open it.
Sorry, go ahead. You're excited to try it? Is that what you said, Diana?
Yeah, I have it. I just they told me to stick it in my stocking and
Oh,
quit
right.
opening.
You are
My
way too
family's like, can
obedient.
you stop opening every single
What
doTERRA
I'm
thing
thinking.
and just dousing yourself in it? And we are trying to have you have something on Christmas to open. And I'm like, fine, whatever.
That's so funny. That's so cute. Well, you're very obedient. Yes, you're very good. You're very, very good. I love it. I love it. Okay, so transition, right, to our class on anxiety. So this is one we've done in kind of different formats throughout the past few years. But this time of year, and we're going to be able to have a wonderful class next week with Miss Joan on, meditative ways to help support anxiety. I think we're all feeling, even if we're not so conscious, so aware of it, right? We're all feeling a lot of stress. And at this point, our stress is becoming anxiety because it has been ongoing for so long that it's starting to sort of weave its way into our being, and we're almost unaware of it, right? The stressors that are just kind of not seeming to go away, right? So I have had anxiety my entire life, as far back as I can remember. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about it many times over the years in different classes and so on and so forth. I try to talk about it a lot because I know that it impacts most people. Most people at some time in their life, I think it's like 30% of people at some time in their life are going to have stress that will develop into something that is more and can become a period of a time where they suffer from anxiety. So it's certainly something worth discussing and sharing about. And honestly, I feel, like I've said before, I feel compelled to share about it in that in the past few years, I feel like I've finally found the tools that I need. Do they change? Yes. Is it always evolving? And does the journey, it's not the same, it's not formulaic, it's not the same way every day, but I have the tools I need. And when I actually listen to my brain that tells me what to do, I do pretty darn well, it's when I don't listen that the problems creep in, right? So let's dive in here a little bit. Okay, did I hit that? I did. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the difference between stress and anxiety, because there is a difference. In our culture, in our society, we tend to interchange the words quite easily and kind of view them as being the same thing. And we tend to, to some extent, there's just a lot of misunderstanding about what anxiety is, especially when you're talking about a generalized anxiety disorder, as opposed to the idea of I'm feeling anxious, okay, or I'm having anxiety over something. When you're talking about it by means of like a psychological or a disorder or a diagnosis, it's a different thing. So when we're talking about stress, this is something that happens to all of us at many different times of the day. You know what I mean? Throughout one day, throughout all days, different things happen that cause us stress. Either it's a reaction to, like, we just did a class and Romelia was talking about her daughter burning her hand, right? You're gonna, oh my gosh, the adrenaline, the stress. I mean, you're reacting to something, right? And you need this. It's really, really important that we have this ability to react and to respond. And then there's other things that are sort of a little bit less emergency based, like, maybe our finances are causing us a lot of stress, our fears, loss of control, all of these things. However, a key component to all of this is that we tend to have an understanding of what it is that's causing us to feel this way, right? We have a conscious understanding of the idea that, like, I'm really stressed about work. I'm really stressed about my son. I'm really stressed about our finances, or I'm really stressed about COVID-19, whatever it might be. You have a sense of what is actually triggering this. You are thinking about it. You're having often a very physical response to that stress, right? But the big thing here is that it is something that you're aware of the cause. You're aware of the stressor, if you will. When we talk about anxiety, though, we're going in a little bit of a different direction here. And it's very easy for them to be confused. But the big thing with anxiety, especially when we're talking about an anxiety disorder, sorry, I don't know, all of a sudden there's like teenagers running and screaming. This always happens to me. But nonetheless, it's a constant, persistent state, right, of either excessive worry, or concern, or just the physical aspects of stress. But there is no stressor. There isn't something that just happened that you're reacting to. Okay. Now, can you have your anxiety be sort of amplified, or, um, you know, exacerbated by a stressor? Absolutely. But this is something that is a constant state of being. It's with you all the time. There are times where it's a little bit less and times where it's a little bit more, but it's always there, playing a role in your life. And it's often in the background, subconscious. So this is different when we're talking about the stressor, where it's something that you're aware of. This is how I'm feeling about this, and this is why. This tends to play a role in the subconscious. You're not necessarily the reasoning for this. The feelings are often, but not always, a bit irrational. And you're just reacting physically and emotionally, but you don't know what it is you're reacting to. You're not having something that you're noticing as being a stressor. It's just almost like you can't turn it off. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If anybody has questions, and I'm sure everyone's had experience with this, please jump in and explain, because everyone's experience with this will be very different. It is very much a very personal way of presenting, right, for all of us. So I like to think of it as something that is kind of quietly manipulating in the background, right? In that it will limit what we believe that we have the power to do in our lives. It will dictate a lot of our fears, whether they're rational or not. It will play a role in the decisions, every decision that we make. It will play a role in how we view ourselves, how we physically treat ourselves, and how we really cope with everything throughout the day. It's there, and it's subconsciously working and manipulating in the background. And that's why it can be really hard for people to recognize and to really be able to deal with. In addition to that, it is often, you know, simplified. It's, we all have stress, get over it. We all have this, we're all dealing with our demons. And that is absolutely true. But when you're talking about something of this level, you're really, it's beyond that. It's not, like I was trying to find, and there were too many, honestly, and they started to get me angry. But, there's all these memes all the time, like, anxiety steals tomorrow from today, what a waste. All of these concepts as though you have an option, that you are playing an active role in this feeling. And that's not true. For most people, that is not true. And so it can be hard to understand that you're having this sense of whatever it is, right? This manipulation that's happening, this overwhelming sense of stress, if you will, the physical aspect of it and the emotional aspect of it. We will tend to simplify it ourselves, to be like, I just need to like get it together. I just need to da da da. You'll downplay it, and you won't then pursue getting help for it, because you yourself will view it as a weakness, right? Or as something that you just need to kind of like, come on, get over it, right? And by all means, nowadays, right, everyone is, we live in a stress culture where the idea of being busy and stressed is somehow, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's kind of become a part of our culture. It's different when it's something that has is actually ingrained in you. So what do they both have in common? Well, they're both emotional responses. Stress and anxiety are, and they cause a lot of the similar, that sounded weird. They cause very similar physical responses, right? That we're all pretty familiar with, right? Irritability, fatigue, rage, irrational responses, heightened pain, and then also a heightened pain reactivity, meaning that you're almost anticipating the pain. And so therefore feel it, so we deal with a lot of people in the work that we do who live in this space, right? Digestive health situation, wonder about that, right? Sleep issues, and emotional, instability, right? Feeling really unstable emotionally, in that we aren't feeling necessarily in control. The need to shut down, right? The need to take a break, which are all good things, but not all the other things, but the need to shut down every once in a while. But this is a little different, a little deeper. So, what is anxiety not? It is not a choice to worry or overthink things. It is not something that you can reason yourself out of. It is not a weakness or a negative outlook, right? It's not an excuse to not put yourself out there. I hear people all the time say, well, I can't do, people tell me this all the time, that they can't do even what I do because of their anxiety or because of, while I understand that it's not easy, you can't, you, it's not, you can, right? At different times it works differently, of course, for different people. But I think what I'm trying to say here is don't let it be an excuse to not pursue your dreams in your life, right? And it's not something that you don't see in leaders or successful people. Just because someone is a leader and they're successful doesn't mean that they don't struggle with anxiety or struggle with, self-image issues, or struggle with, limiting beliefs, all of those things, right? These are really important things to note. It's just that maybe they found some way to cope with that and still move forward. So a big thing to know. And the reason why I put that out there is because if you have anxiety, I think it's important to know this is not something that has put a barrier in your life in the way that you can't work through and get help and support and fulfill your dreams, right? You can. It's just that it is a journey, just like everything else. We all have our stuff, right? Like we were saying earlier. So what are some of the causes of anxiety that's different than stress? Okay, so stress is, like we said, something happening in the now, right? Anxiety is something that can be caused by a lot of different things. Some of the leading causes of a generalized anxiety disorder, okay, which is what we're talking about here, can be childhood trauma, unsupported, things that aren't dealt with, right? Chemical imbalance, untreated stress, or prolonged states of stress. So right now, when I was saying earlier that a lot of people are starting to enter and dive and walk into the world of a true anxiety disorder, is because we have had stress for so long, for months and months on end, that really there is no answer to, right? And this starts to become ingrained into our being. And we don't, at first it was stressful. Remember March? When everybody was like, oh my gosh, blah, 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 blah. Now we're just like, well, I don't know. Like it's just becoming a part of it. There's an acceptance there, but it's buried in us, right? We still have to deal with this stuff. Developmental disorders very often have extreme anxiety issues associated with them. Chronic health issues, and here's something, if you are someone who has a chronic health issue it is scary, it's overwhelming, it's exhausting, draining, and it really can take a toll on you emotionally as well. Kind of like Trixie was talking about earlier with, pain and how, having your oils and having tools that help you support you emotionally as well as physically is really, really important. A lot of people who have chronic health issues will have anxiety disorder issues or anxiety attack issues in relation to their health disorder. In other words, becoming extremely concerned, worried, having the inability to separate themselves from the health issue that's happening, right? Phobias. So phobias are a part of an anxiety disorder. So a lot of people get like agoraphobia, they don't want to go out around people. They will limit their circles, their social life, what they can and can't do based on these phobias. The interesting thing about phobias, though, is that they are both fed by and created by anxiety. Okay. So it is a cycle that is very, very hard to get out of. And so you really want to start paying attention to these situations before you're reaching this point. and kind of before it gets into that cycle, that circle that is so hard to break out of. And Trixie's saying in the chat, it's wild how they are all interconnected. And it really is, and a traumatic life experience. So, PTSD, right? People who have had something traumatic, a car accident, a physical abuse situation, war. I mean, these, things that really can cause a lot of emotional trauma that then triggers this whole other part of you that won't turn off. Okay. All right. So, understanding your anxiety, and this is where we start to really get into the journey that I've been on with this. And so, everyone is going to be different. I just want to say again, this is me sharing my journey. And everyone will be very different in how they handle things and how that it has unfolded for them, right? The first thing is a little bit of self-evaluation. So this is kind of a weird one, right? But it's important, like I said earlier, to start to recognize that you're having a problem, okay? My husband, I remember when earlier on, I would always say, I'm really tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I would say I'm tired all the time. And finally, he pointed it out. He was like, you're always tired. You always are telling me about how you're tired. You're always tired. Like, what's up with that? And then I started to hear myself saying it over and over and over again. And it was like, yeah, what is up with that? Like, why am I doing that all the time? Why am I constantly, it's almost like just doing anything was too much. And then I would just wanted to get back to that place because I was so tired all the time. So recognizing and hearing what you're saying to yourself, right, is big. But I think that a big part of this is not doing what I mentioned earlier, which is just simply saying, oh, it's just stress. I just need to, pull up my boots and get back with it. Recognizing that you're having an issue and recognizing that it's something that can be dealt with, but that it's something that does need to be dealt with, right? That's huge. It's the first step, like you said, in all things, right? It's gonna drop out of my head now, but understanding that you have a problem is the first step to getting help, right? Is the basic premise that I'm going with here. But it really is because this is one of those things. It's similar to chronic pain, right? People with chronic pain, they don't want to complain. They don't want to, people get sick of listening to it. People start to look at them like, Jesus, get over it, whatever, you know what I mean? And so they start to hide it, and they themselves just are kind of dealing with this space that's not necessary to deal with all the time, right? But yet, how do you explain it? How do you get out of it without feeling weak? And that's one of the challenges with anxiety, right? I also think it's really important to start to recognize your own voice separate from the anxiety. Okay, what happens is the anxiety it talks to you. Okay, that sounds weird. I promise I don't hear voices, but like it will start to creep into your life and tell you stories about how and why this is this and this is that. And if you aren't able to recognize that that's what's happening at the time, which of course you're not going to be able to do all the time, but the more you start to listen and the more you start to pay attention and really kind of be aware, the easier it is to recognize, oh, that's, I call her bad names. I'm like, that's that bitch. She's just trying to hold me back and I'm not going to listen to her anymore. You know what I mean? She's had control over me for 49 years. Shut up. You know what I mean? But it's not that easy, right? Anxiety will create its own self-talk is what Trixie's saying. And it really does. It's how it controls you, right? I like to give the example of last year when I was, it was more than a year ago now, that I went back east and was helping my dad move, get everything packed up, right? And I ran out of my supplements. Well, I'll show you later why the supplements are so important to my anxiety. But then it was the weirdest thing, because even when I came home and I had my supplements, I wasn't taking them. I could not get myself in the habit of taking them. I was literally talking myself out of taking my supplements, which is so dumb because I knew that my supplements were the key to how I felt better. And it was the anxiety. It was the anxiety almost trying to keep me from being better. I know that sounds weird, but that's the only way I can put it together. It was like I had to force myself for at least a week or two to take them. And then I was fine. I was like, okay, now I'm all better. And of course I want my supplements. They're amazing. And I feel fantastic. And I don't have the anxiety, and it's incredible. Right. Diane is saying in the chat that unfortunately our society has a very ingrained repression of worry and sharing pain, especially as a parent. You are seen as indulging yourself in your problems. Oh, I totally agree with you. Yeah, Savannah. Yeah. Oh, totally. You may or may not do the same thing. I hear you. Right. And it's true. It's just a weird thing. It's almost like, the microbes, right, in your gut kind of trying to keep you eating sugar. That's how I view it. Right. It was like my anxiety was not wanting me to be free of it. And when it's a part of you, for me, it's been my whole life, right? It's hard to break out of that because there is sort of a separation there. Work with a professional, seek help, okay? Whether it's a counselor, anyone, even a good friend initially can be a wonderful support to help you to come to the place where you go, this something just really feels like I might need to get more help here. I really might need to get more assistance here. So do that, okay? And by no means am I in any way trying to say or promote the idea of just self-medicating, if you will, through oils and supplements and don't get help. No, absolutely go and seek help. And if you don't find it in the first place, find someplace else. And if you don't find it there, try something else, right? Because it's really, really important to kind of work through those stages with someone who really understands what's going on, because also it could be something else. And we don't want to certainly be confusing one situation with another and have people suffering not unnecessarily. Yeah, so Diana's saying in the chat, sorry, we know we aren't feeling well, but we can't work past it to doing something to help ourselves. Yeah, exactly. It's so weird. It makes no logical sense, right? But it's true. And these are the things that, like, honestly, anybody else listening who doesn't have anxiety listens and thinks, what the hell's wrong with you, right? But if you do, you're like, oh yeah, I get it, right? I get it. I totally do that, right? It's a sabotaging thing. And then acceptance without surrender. So this is huge, right? Being able to accept that this is a part of your journey. I mean, that's something that I have really been, look, I'm sharing these classes. I'm trying to talk about it as much as possible, trying to share that, and I'm screwing up left and right, on the other hand. So don't, I don't have it under control, but I understand what I need and I'm doing it. So that's a difference, right? I understand and accept that this is a part of who I am. And it's just something that I've dealt with my whole life, but by no means am I surrendering to it. Right? I'm not going to give up my dreams. I'm not going to stop pursuing what I want to pursue. I'm not going to stop believing in myself. And I'm not going to just sleep all the time, which is what my default place is, right? Or to want to really kind of shut down. Like I can shut down like a droid, right? You push a button, I can just and be done, right? I have no issue with that. Differentiating self from anxiety. Yeah. And that's really hard. It sounds, it sounds easier than it is because the water is very muddy, right? And so it's a challenge, but practice it, right? Listen to the days when you wake up and you feel great and you're like, man, I can conquer the world. I'm a powerful, amazing woman who can do anything I put my mind to. Those days where you're just like, hell yeah, and you're ready to rock the world. That's amazing. And that's a great way to feel. It's what's dragging you away from all of that, because we are all that person, right? We can do whatever we put, we have that ability. It's all this other talk that causes us to not do it, right? But yeah, so anyway, I just think that the acceptance is huge, and meaning recognition, working through it, being okay with it, but then also being like, yeah, but I'm going to be fighting every step of the way to make sure that I'm able to live my best life. Okay, so we don't want to hide from it. Don't hide from it. You'll be so sad when you find tools that work for you. You'll be like, why did I hide so long, right? I could have been blah, blah, blah. I let myself hide for so long. So I wanted to talk first about a lot of things that I've tried in my life. I used to have anxiety attacks a lot when I was a kid. Just, you can't breathe. The world is just, it's just a terrible feeling. It's like an asthma attack, right? Um, and you can't communicate why you're having this, right? There's no trigger. You're just having this anxiety attack. So biofeedback was a big thing for that. And I will say the biofeedback worked really nicely for anxiety attacks. At the time, it was not something that was taught to me to do on the daily as a tool to relieve anxiety in a general way, which now, where I'm at today, I recognize probably would have been a really good idea, right? Because it was so supportive for stopping anxiety attacks, but it's also a really wonderful way to support just kind of grounding and recentering yourself, right? And allowing for those reflective moments, right? So this would be something like, Miss Jones' class that we're going to get to do next week, right? With how meditating or how her yoga class can be so soothing and so supportive for calming all of that through breath and all of these techniques, right? Self-medication, yes, I did a good, boy, I was good at self-medicating for a very, very long time. However, it really did not serve me well. And so, there's that, right? I think that that's a really common thing, especially for young people, honestly, for all ages, because let's be real, it's that, oh my gosh, da da da, I need a drink, or oh my gosh, da da da, I need to fill in the blank, right? And for a moment, there is that relief, but then it actually can be amplified by those tools and turn around and bite you in the butt. Okay. So, not to mention damaging and cause you a lot of problems in your life in ways that are unexpected as side effects of that, right? My foot is asleep and I have to move it. Oh my God. I'm sitting on the floor because and I'm like doing the splits around this marble table and it's really causing me some pain. Okay, all better now. Antidepressants, right? So antidepressants can be fantastic for so many people and for so many things. For me, now you have to understand this was antidepressants the way that they were in the 80s. Okay, so this is not the antidepressant of today. Okay, it was numbing and horrible and not something that I was able to continue doing. I did not give it a full run because it really freaked me out the way that I was feeling. I was not happy with that at all, and decided, oh no, gonna do that. Blah blah blah. I think I was probably about 16 or 17 at the time. So, you're like, you have a whole different mindset about, I'm fine, blah, 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 right? So that didn't really work out that way. And quitting, I think quitting has been my number one coping mechanism for anxiety, right? Things get too much, I get too overwhelmed, I just stop. And it makes it go away, kind of, sort of, but not really, right? Quitting is such the easy way to relieve yourself of anxiety, because when things start, the weird thing for me, with the way the mind works, is that when things start to get really, really good, my anxiety goes up really, really high. So I am definitely a self-sabotager in that way. And I try really hard not to be that way. But I really, really am. And I know it's funny because, it might not look that way, but it is that way, right? Okay. And so, we've done a lot of great things and have pushed really hard to achieve things that we've really put our minds to as a family and so forth, but not without having to really walk through some storms and force myself to not quit. And typically, here's the thing that's really interesting, and you'll probably recognize this if you know me well. The way that I keep myself from quitting things is I make sure that it's associated with other people. If it's associated with helping other people, I will stick with it because I want to help other people and I don't want to let anybody down. Whereas if it's just about me or something like, you know what I mean, I'll quit it. Right. And so it's kind of weird that way, how you can actually create buffers where you where you say, this is how I know I can do this great, is I will involve like my kids, or I'll involve my friends, or I'll whatever, and that way I won't stop because I don't want to let them down. And that for me is definitely something that is a motivator, right? um Yeah, so Tammy's saying, it's going so good. Now what's going to go wrong? Yeah, you start wondering. And really what I think it comes down to too is that, if you have one of those like childhood issues, or if you have some of the other issues where you don't believe that you deserve things, right? And so you will sabotage them, and they will manifest in all of that talk that's happening right in the background. And so when things start going really well, it's really easy to ruin them, because if you ruin them, I mean, this is all subconscious, okay? If you ruin them, it's okay, right? It's a weird thing, I know, but that's how it is. Okay, so let's get into the things that I found that work for me, which have been amazing. And most of them, in fact, almost all of them have been in the past like 3 years, which is incredible, right? 49, I'll be 50 in April. I hope that people don't have to deal with this for as long as I have. I mean, the way that I would live before would be I'd go and do stuff. And like if I taught at our co-op for a day, I would have to spend the whole next day in bed. Like there was just no getting me out of bed, the kid, nothing. I couldn't function because it would be so, that would drain me to such an extent that I required that much recovery time. If it was a couple days, I was a couple days in bed, right? It was just how it happened, right? Susan is saying it's a control thing. If we sabotage ourselves, yeah, we can at least be in control of it because it's coming anyway, right? That is exactly right. That's how we tend to, it's a coping mechanism, right? And it's weird because it is subconscious. Like you don't realize you're doing it unless you do it so long for 49 years that you look and go, oh yeah, look at me. I'm over here doing that crap again. Like you kind of get bored with yourself, honestly. You're like, geez, Kari, get a new gig. like you're so predictable. Anyway, so what have I found that works for me, right? Listening to myself and hearing the lies. Now, this is hard. I'm going to go through this quick list and then we're going to dive into each one. Lifelong vitality with consistent use. That's huge. Checking out from time to time. And I want to explain what that means by checking out. Aromatherapy has been wonderful. Sleep health and really focusing on my sleep. And then nutrition and supplementation. These are the things that I have found that really help me, that have helped me to the place where I feel the strongest I've ever felt in relation to how I handle my anxiety and how my anxiety lives in me at, at a minimal quieted down voice pattern. Right. And so it's just really, I don't know, it's exciting for me to be able to even share these things. Okay. So first off, lifelong vitality. I started taking lifelong vitality because it came with my kit. It came with a kit that I got and it was like, okay, I'll take it and see what it's about. I didn't really have a tremendous amount of interest in it. I just really didn't know much about it, to be honest with you. It wasn't even that I wasn't anti, I just was like, I don't know. I took supplements when I was pregnant and I hated it. So what's this really going to do? I mean, that was really kind of just where my head was at. But I started taking them and I really wanted them to work, which is big. Okay. I really wanted them to be great. And boy, they were great. I was not one of the people who took them and 3 days later had just this awesome energy and all of this, that didn't happen for me. But after 30 days, I really, in looking back over the previous 30 days, I realized that I hadn't had really an anxiety attack and I hadn't had the need to recuperate the way that I used to do, like a whole day in bed after a day of teaching or whatever, or even 3 hours of teaching. Right. And so that was big. And you know what? I didn't even notice it. It was that I actually had to look back and go, I'm feeling really good. Like I'm getting up every day. I'm doing stuff. I'm getting dressed. which is a thing. I'm doing like stuff like people do. I go out to places. I still don't make phone calls. If you know me, you know I don't talk on the phone. It's still something that causes me a tremendous amount of anxiety. I'm waiting for doTERRA to come out with the phone call supplement, and then I will be all over that one. But so my husband has to make calls when it's like something like somebody has to deal with something over the phone. I hate it. Anyway, so, but the lifelong vitality, really what it did is it gave me clarity of thought. So I listed that here. And what does this mean? This was for the first time I could differentiate between who I was and who the anxiety was that was controlling me. And I was able to sort of, in a more very just sort of mindful way, recognize, Kari, that's your anxiety speaking. You've got this. You know, you're going to do this, or you're going to do it scared, or you're going to do it with anxiety, but you're going to do it, right? And make good choices in that way. I had huge improvement on sleep. This was probably the number one physical thing that I noticed, but this ties directly to my anxiety too. I used to wake up every single night at 3:33 in the morning, and I would have an anxiety attack, right? Because that lady who in the night, oh my God, she was very just, crazy with stress and anxiety. I would have just an anxiety attack. And wake up to an anxiety attack is a terrible way to wake up at 3:30 in the morning. And I couldn't go back to sleep for hours on end. And this was every single day. Well, my father has terrible insomnia. So I just always thought that was how I was, and that's just how it is. And my dad's that way too. And da da da. You know what I mean? We all do that, right? I was sleeping through the night. None of those middle of the night anxiety attacks. That's huge. Every night, like that's bullshit. Let's just be real, right? Like who the hell wants to wake up every night with an anxiety attack? That's not fair. That sucks. I just accepted it as normal, right? It's not, and don't accept it as normal. And it got rid of my anxiety attack. So what it did was it was like, oh my gosh, I really thought that lifelong vitality was the thing that was gonna, it did everything. And you know what? It did all of those things. But what I didn't know at the time was that there was even more that could be even better. I just thought by removing the hellish parts that I was better. But it turns out there's way more than just removing the hellish parts to life, right? And so I'll tell you about that in a minute. Checking out from time to time. So this is not about unplugging and like going to bed all day, right? Not to say there's anything wrong with that every now and again, right? That's kind of nice, right? A little Netflix day is a good thing. Or book if you're one of those people, but I'm just not, let's be real. But allowing for the ebb and flow of energy in your life, right? Not forcing myself to be always in a state of go, 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 right? Because that is also anxiety driven. Okay. It's important to, it's two sides of the same coin. And allowing for there to be times of rest and grace, and allowing for myself to recognize and say, hey, I'm going to take a day. I'm going to take a few hours. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Right. That's really important. Taking some time for myself, but this was huge, without guilt. Okay. Removing guilt from being able to do self-care is huge, because the self-care is what allows me to be more present and more available and give bigger. If I just, now, and there's no judgment here because I'm just not this gal, but I know some people are, and I think that's great. I don't have like me time. I don't go get, massages every week or do all of these things. Like, you know what I mean? I just wouldn't even know what to do with myself with that. Right. But because I'm not there yet, I'm working on it. Okay. But like, I do recognize and I do take the time to refuel. And I do that in the ways that work for me, which are usually like doing something creative, hanging out with friends, having a glass of wine with my husband, laughing and enjoying time with people who I love, right? And not thinking about work or whatever it is that's going on. Finding and feeding my creativity is really, really big. One of the things that has been huge too is moving from task to task based on my mood. So I try to keep a list of all the stuff I need to do. And instead of forcing myself to do the thing that's causing me to feel like crap, I'll just do something else on the list that has to get done, but that I'm in the mood to do. So maybe I'm in the mood to do the dishes, or maybe I'm in the mood to be on Canva, or maybe I'm in the mood to be on Facebook, or maybe I'm in the mood, you know what I mean? It's okay because I'm still getting stuff done. It's just based on what I'm in the mood to do, but I'm still being productive, right? And that was big because what I would do before is if I wasn't doing the thing that was causing me the stress, I would do nothing. right? It would just be like, well, then I'll do nothing. And I'll just, and then of course that causes stress and anxiety and you know what I mean? And so that was huge, was going, oh, you know what? It's okay to just, if today's the day I want to clean the house, I'm going to clean the house today. But guess what? A lot of days cleaning the house is the thing that I'm just like, you know, and that's causing me the hell, you know? So I just try to flow a little bit more and allow myself that grace. And that's big. Okay. Aromatherapy has been huge. Coming to and really listening to, like really listening to and paying attention to like Diana's class that she does, you know, from the I Am Fabulous is wonderful. You know, it's fantastic. The tools that you learn about, the fact that you can hold in your hand these tools is very empowering, and understanding that it's a process. And that's what she teaches in that class, in that series of classes. And it's fantastic, right? Um, and that's aromatherapy, you know, it's mostly topical use, right? Aromatherapy, as far as my diffusers go, has been huge. I think it's so funny, this is my list, right? Balance, Adaptive, Serenity, Siberian Fir, Copaiba, Sandalwood, Patchouli, Black Spruce, and Holiday Peace. Not an emotional oil in there. Not one of the emotional oils is in there, right? Do I love the emotional oils? I totally love the emotional oils. They're fantastic, but it's important to just go with the ones that work for you. Okay. The ones that work for me are these guys. And these are my tools that I use for my aromatherapy. I started with Balance because it was one of the very first ones that I ever had and ordered, and I just fell in love with it immediately. And then, of course, once Adaptive came out, that has been huge. But really, Siberian Fir, Copaiba, Sandalwood, Patchouli, these are the things that are, for me, bring me to a place of grounding, bring me to a space of feeling that support that I need, and quieting whatever that is that's happening in that crazy subconscious mind of mine, right? So I really like to deal with that. And Tammy's saying in the chat that the emotional oils deal with emotions, and really anxiety is not an emotion. Okay. And so that's important. It has an emotional impact, but it itself is a mental health issue. Okay. And so they're separate things, but I think, my point is that find the oils that work for you. Some people, like Tammy, loves blue tansy. She'll just bathe in blue tansy all day long. It makes her feel grounded and homey and, supported and focused and ready to go. Right. I'm like, girl, move 6 seats over. I can't stand you in that blue tansy. Right. Like, you know what I mean? But like, that's what works for her. It doesn't matter what it is. Find what works for you. You have absolute permission to bathe yourself in whatever it is that makes you happy, and use it in your diffuser. There's no rules. We have names on stuff and it's fantastic, but really, there's no rules. Just use what you find supportive. And I think that matters a lot. So Tammy's saying in the chat that she's got to defend her blue tansy. It's for inspired action, and it gets me out of procrastination. Right. Which is, you know what? That's probably why it triggers me, because I'm just like, do not mess with my procrastination bubble. We are very close. It probably challenges me too much and causes me, energetic stress. Right. That's so funny, but it is a good oil. But use what works for you. So sleep health. This was big, right? Remember, I was saying that like when my anxiety, for me, I just shut down. Like literally can, like, all emotion, all feelings just shut down. And sleep for long periods of time. Well, that's not healthy sleep habits. That's not healthy. But what I was finding too was that, remember, I was waking up every night with these anxiety attacks. If you've ever had they're very draining, right? And I had to really start to focus on sleep as a true health issue, something that was going to really support me in feeling better. And, I didn't know this until Lifelong Vitality and getting to sleep through the night and realizing how important sleep was, in that I felt so good when I was getting good, consistent sleep and not having that happen every night. So what I had to do was understand how much I need. I need at least 8 hours of sleep. That's just who I am. And honestly, what's funny is if I said that to my mother today, she'd be like, yeah, you do. You've always been that way since you were a little girl. Like, I have to have 8 hours of sleep or else I'm just a wreck. And if I sleep for 2 hours, the next night I need to sleep for, I like bank them. You know what I mean? It's weird. Now, a lot of you guys who've known me for a long time know I used to get up at like 3 a.m. and do all my work, right? That was like who I would be like, oh, I've been up since 3. I'm doing all my stuff all the time, right? Great for productivity to some extent, not so good for the anxiety. No, doesn't work out that way. Need the sleep. Okay. So I do wake and sleep with the sun on a regular basis. Here, that's doesn't work because there's like clouds and trees, and I need my New Mexico sun to really be able to have that work for me. But um, I do, it's like switching sleep over from a luxury or something that I do when I'm tired or something that I do when I'm, you know what I'm saying? I view it now as a critical component to my overall health and wellness. And so taking my lifelong vitality so that, and boy, if I don't remember, believe me, I'm up. Serenity and vetiver in my diffuser, huge, right? And developing good sleep techniques. I have found that I sleep really, really well if I wear an eye mask. Or I don't even know what to call it. My version of an eye mask is my father's version of an eye mask, which is a knit cap pulled down over my eyes. It's awesome and it's really comfortable. And let me tell you, try it one time and you will be a very happy person, especially in the winter. It's so comfy. But it doesn't have the elastic, you know what I'm saying? Like that's not comfortable for me. So just a little loose knit cap that just comes down. My husband calls me, who is the guy from Fat Albert, you know, with the hat? Do you guys remember? I don't, anyway, it's really bad because Fat Albert is horrible, but nonetheless, it's kind of funny at night. So I do that. I wear an eye mask to sleep. It really helps me. It stops light from changing around me, and it really helps me to stay in a good space of sleep. And then here's the weird one. I need sound. I have to have noise on or I don't sleep well. Um, this is just something that is who I am and how I am. I've always been this way. I need to have a lot of sound. If it's quiet, my brain races and I don't sleep. I need something that helps me to tune out and just kind of listen until I drift off, and then I stay sound asleep. If as soon as the sound stops, I wake up, like, and then I have to fix it and make it come back on. And that's just, but you know what? It works for me, and so that's what matters. Find what works for you. You know, everybody's like, oh, you have to do this and you have to do that and da, da, da. Do what works for you. Okay, just do what works for you. Okay, so the next thing is nutrition and supplementation. So this has obviously been enormous. Recognizing that my lifelong vitality was a power hitter led me to finding other things and other supplements and really starting to want to learn more about what they could do and how they could help me. The adaptive has been a game changer. When I was saying before that the lifelong vitality kind of removed all the negative, what it didn't necessarily do was bring me to a place of recognizing and really being able to step into what I like to say is like step into who I really am supposed to be without that dark cape of anxiety that was dragging me down and holding me back from so much in my life for so long. And that's what adaptive has done. Adaptive has just completely helped me to not just be somebody who's coping, but be somebody who's thriving and able to really tackle what it is that I want to tackle in my day. Are they all good days? Absolutely not. But are most of them good days? Yeah, they really are. And that's amazing. Because you have to remember too that none of these are causing me side effects. None of these are in any way building up in my system, causing me anything, any problems. These are all completely natural tools. And this is how they're working for me. I've been starting ever since Cindy taught a class a while back on brain health, you know, and emotional health and support from the turmeric dual capsules. I've really been good about taking those as well. And I'm noticing that's a longer journey. Okay. You know what I mean? None of these are, here's the thing. You're not going to just like take one, you know what I mean? And then like, boom, it's not like that. Okay. You got to be patient, but remember before you weren't doing crap. So you were just feeling like crap. So this journey, you know, you got the time, right? And so if you're like me, but so it's okay for something to take a little while because as it's working, it's incredible. And the beauty is it works slowly over time. And then you look back and you're like, gosh, remember when I can't even imagine being the person who would spend days on end in bed with my kids, just like, what's mom doing? You know, what's going on? Like, imagine that, you know, I don't do that anymore. I'm not that person anymore, but that's been a slow, long journey. Right. And you know, I know that's extreme and not everyone's anxiety is that way, but you might be surprised what you don't realize the anxiety is doing to you. Maybe maybe you're not in bed all day, but maybe you're doing other things that are how you're coping, right? So keep that in mind. Just because you might not resonate or that might not be what your version is, we all have our different versions of how we cope. Okay, so I'm also really, really big on PB Assist, and I don't know why I don't have it on here, but the PB Assist has been really, really big. It's a great support. Anxiety, we've talked about this many times, does have a seat in gut health a lot, and vice versa, right? And emotional health and stress, right? But anxiety can cause continuous gut health issues, because there's a physical response happening. And so that PB Assist, keeping that healthy and strong is big and a big support. So sublingual daily use of copaiba and frankincense multiple times a day. I mean, basically, if I walk by it or somebody mentions it, I'm like, ooh, and I do it, right? I might do it 2 times in a day. I might do it 10 times in a day. Okay. 1 or 2 drops, just depends on how I'm feeling. But for me, it's incredibly grounding. I love how Trixie says it helps. It feels like she puts her feet on in the morning, right? Like she's just able to really function on all feet on all points, right? So and I love that because it's such a great way of putting it. When I remember, or when I am so moved, I also do Melissa and Yo Palm under my tongue. I don't do them as regularly as I should, but they're really helpful too. Really, really helpful too. They just don't taste as good as the other two. And so, I mean, you know, I try to do them at least a couple times a week. I want to get better at it, but it's a journey, right? I will get better at it, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. Okay, so I just wanted to throw in here because this is how I'm now going to be getting, and this is what I started doing. But for my adaptive stuff is the Mind and Mood collection. And I'm throwing it out there because you just can't beat the price on this. I mean, it's $75 a month and you're getting all of these tools, but then you also get the discount on the additional items that you can add on the add-ons, right? And so that's huge. So if you are wanting to start with adaptive and get the adaptive collection, or go in with balance, or utilize these tools, I highly just recommend doing it this way because of the price point is just unbeatable, right? But I do. Oh God, my feet are so asleep; they're like numb. Sorry, it's just a weird feeling. But yeah, so that was really, I just wanted to be able to share with you guys what things have been working for me and where I'm at with it. Look, there are times where I recognize that like I can be more on it. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to fall off your game because, when you're talking about supporting something like anxiety through the use of your oils and your supplements, you got to be on your game. It's not a one and done, right? And so you're going to fall off, and you're going to have times where there is stress that comes in, which again is going to be that like momentary stressors that can catapult you into a scenario, right? That's real, and that's how it's going to be. And I'm okay with that, because no longer is that terrifying or numbing or concerning, because I know what to do to get out of it. And that's incredibly empowering, is if you have an understanding of the tools that you have and what you need to do to pull yourself out of a time when maybe things aren't as good. That's all you need, right? It's like what is the, if you need to teach a kid how to learn, and then they can know everything in the world, right? It's kind of like that. Like, if you know that you have the tools, you can handle anything. You just got to be willing to use your tools, and things are going to come at you, but you have the tools to deal with it. Everyone's going to be really different too. And what you find that works for you is going to be particular to you and specific to you. I want to reiterate as well that, again, if you are recognizing anything of yourself in anything that I'm sharing, seek out some help, right? Seek out some help. Always do that as a first step. It's really, really important, especially if anything having to do with health issues that are impacting the quality of your life, right? We all deserve to be as close to the best versions of ourselves, that we were put here to be, right? And so it's important to give yourself permission to be that person. And yes, you do deserve to be that person and to be happy and to be able to pursue what you want and not have to deal with all of that all of the time, right? All that weight. Donald wore a knit cap. That's hilarious. The guy from Manny, he's just looking at me like, what? The guy from Fat Albert. Anyway, okay. So does anyone have any questions on anything? I know I was just babbling my way through.
I had my hand raised. I'll take it off, but I was wondering about to bring back a question from Leslie that she had put into the chat was like, what does an anxiety attack look like?
It doesn't look the same for any
panic attack kind of thing look like.
It doesn't necessarily look the same for different people. Some people get like extreme tightening in their chest. It almost can feel like a heart attack, right? Some people have almost a respiratory response, which is what I would have, as well as like tightening. You can feel like you're underwater to some extent. Some people will actually have more of like a rage type response. So it can look a lot of different ways, right? I think the connective aspect, the part that makes it recognizable is that you'll notice either a pattern to it happening for you or that it is triggered by that anxiety, right? I mean, I know that's kind of weird because it's not necessarily a stressor. Like I remember one of the big ones I had at school was, I've been 5'9" since like 7th grade. And I was in 9th grade and I had to sit in one of those desks where the seat is attached to the desk. Do you know what I'm talking about? And the desk in front of me, this chair was right up against my little piece of wood. And I, was just sitting in there and my knees were jammed up against, and the teacher was talking and I just couldn't, it just triggered this whole anxiety attack over this desk, which is clearly irrational, right? That makes no sense, right? That I would have like the whole class, like I had to be taken to the nurse's office. Like it was a whole thing, right? Over this desk that's attached to the table. But so it was irrational, but it really triggered that whole thing. And looking back at it, that was clearly a time when my anxiety was super out of control. And actually that was the thing that got me to do biofeedback therapy was after that particular attack. But yeah, crazy. Oh, what an amazing class. Oh, you're so sweet. My legs do not fit. My legs do not fit. My legs are longer than my dad's. So my dad is like 6'4". I have crazy long legs. Like he can sit on an airplane and he has like leg room. I get on an airplane and my knees, I have to sit with my knees like aside because they are jamming into the seat in front of me. Anyway, causes me stress.
But yeah, I totally get that. I'm really leggy and it sounds like everybody goes, ooh, wow, it'd be nice to have your legs, whatever. No, my legs don't fit. Like seriously. And my pants have been like either floody or just awkward my whole life because I'm just shaped like a olive oils type scarecrow person. And I feel you. It's not, you were my sister from another mister tonight, girl.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry that if you share any of this journey with me, but yeah. So, it's a loss of control and a sense. It's almost like impending doom, and really almost like you're dying. That's the closest thing I could think to describe an anxiety attack as feeling. And it's a physical. It's not mental. It's not a mental breakdown, which is a little different. It is a physical response that you're just like on a ride with, right? So really, really weird.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, very well, thank you. How are you?
Everything is good?
Yep, just teaching a class.
That's right. It's cold outside.
It's very cold outside.
Have a good night.
You too. Have a great night. So sweet. Anyway, so sorry. Any other questions though? On anything? I'll keep you posted for the next thing they come out with that I learned from. and how it's working.
I think it's past time to have shared this, because I think so many people deal with this and they haven't found the words for it, and they haven't found the identification for it, because our society just tells you to stop presenting your problems. Just keep all your issues to yourself. Please stop bothering us with all of this. And you're afraid, and you don't want to get to the point where you're gonna need like actual like intervention, and have to end up somewhere, because you can't handle it anymore, but it's like it's a bad like spiral that you can get into, and end up there, because you're not able to be open about it, and you're not able to reach out towards somebody who can help support you to get onto the path of getting better and of managing it,
Yeah, the irony too is that I think that a lot of times how these, in that list of ways that this can be sort of, base causes, right? Traumas and even, childhood traumas and stuff, in order to get help or to recognize this, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And that in and of itself is anxiety inducing, right? So it is a challenge to even let yourself go there, right? So that can be hard on people, I think.
No, I mean, it's just a great example, and thank you so much for sharing it, because I think that, like I said, people are really just even afraid to look at it in themselves, and to see somebody else doing it really can help, people to go, wait a minute, let me think about this, because this is very similar to what I've been going through all these years, and I just keep on, like telling myself off and telling myself to just quit it,
Yeah, I hear you. No, it's true. But it is one of those things, like I said, when you deal with something for that long, and then in just a matter of a few years, you find tools that have freed you to such an extent. How do you not share that with people? I mean, how do you not share that with people? It would be so selfish to not share that with people. And I'm proud of myself, and I'm excited about where I've come and how far I've come with it. And so all of that, I feel empowered by the vulnerability now, which is a very different scenario, right? So that's a good space to be able to be in, and to let, or to open the door, and have other people have that relief, would be amazing. So I'll just teach it every month. Anyway.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Yes, please.
You're too sweet. All right, guys, thank you. And I have a good night. Go sleep.
Night, y'all.
Yeah. Have a great night. I think I'm going to stop the recording. I have to remember to do that. I'm so bad at this part. It's different. There we go.